In process analysis, there is a one powerful tool to analyze and utilize the bottlenecks to gain better performance. This theory, we call it the theory of constraint.
Let's discuss about the famous concept in managing the bottleneck and capacity, which is the theory of constraint. Why we use the theory of constraint? Because in this theory, yeah, it make us able to improve the flow time of product or services through the system. We can increase the throughput, which is output per unit time, and then we can also reduce the variation and improve quality by focusing on the constraint or the bottleneck, and we can create the system that is having the low disruption, and this is also the one way, the sustainable way to change. The basic assumption of the theory of constraint is that the speed and volume, and also this is the throughput as well, that it will impact, those both will impact the throughput, is determinant of the success. If this is not, then we cannot use this theory. And then the current process is this process is essential, is important, is a priority to produce the desired output. And then the product or service design is stable. We are not changing the product or service so quickly. And then the process has dependent event and variation. So the event and variation has dependency in the process. So when we handle one, we can solve also the others. The measure that we use in the theory of constraint is the increased throughput. So one is throughput in this case. The second is the operational expenses that we want to decrease. And lastly is the inventory also we want to decrease. How we can do that? There are 5-step process for recognizing and managing the constraint or limitation in the theory of constraint. First, we have to be able to identify the constraint or the bottleneck one. The bottleneck is the one that having the highest workload there, the longest processing time there, for example. This is the constraint. And the second is we have to be able to develop the plan for overcoming the constraint. For example, we have to make sure that all the part or material coming and ready to the unit that become the constraint. We have to make sure that we maintain the machine that become the constraint to avoid the breakdown and so on. So, and also we can also prepare for the backup, for the redundancy. For example, we can create a parallel, yeah, to overcome the constraint. We can create also the inventory in this step. So the step 2 is developing the plan, and the step 3 is focus all the resources on accomplishing the step number 2. In this case, all our resources, the human resources and the material, the information, we have to closely keep an eye on the units, on the machine that become the bottleneck or constraint here. So the step number 3 is focusing all our resources, yeah, to accomplish the plan that overcome the constraint. And number 4, we can reduce the effect of the constraint by offloading the work. So the number 4 is reducing the workload at the constraint, or we expand capability, for example, by buying new machine, adding more resources, adding more employee that handle that machine, and so on. So the step number 4 is reduce the effect of the constraint. And number 5, when we already overcome the constraint, we can go back to the first step and try to find out the new constraint to overcome. So this is kind like a closed loop step. So this is the continuous improvement step to overcome the constraint in the system. So it is said that an hour loss at the bottleneck is an hour loss for the total system. An hour saved at the non-bottleneck is just a mirage. So we have focusing on the bottleneck through the usage of this theory of constraint. So thank you so much and see you again in the next video.
Thank you so much for joining me in Learning Operation Management. See you again in the next video.